So before I get into my intro about my guest today, I just wanted to remind you to head on over to mysolopreneurlife.com, the landing page, because I added some new content about the courses, coaching, and tactical services that I offer. And we can actually work together beyond just you listening to this podcast. So if you need any help with your business, whether you're just starting out or whether you're on your 5th or 10th year, if you need some help with the business development strategy, if you've kind of plateaued and you're looking at new ways you can provide value to your clients and customers, let's just have a talk. You can always go over to the website and grab time on my calendar. I'd be more than happy to talk to any of my listeners. So thank you for that. So today I'm going to have a conversation with my guest, Natalie Benamou. Natalie and I recently met through a client of mine who referred me to check out her business, which is her C-Suite. And her C-Suite is very robust. She actually has a lot of programs and a lot of different masterminds for women in the second stage of their careers that are still ambitiously pursuing maybe an executive role, a C-suite role, board position, or something else where they're really doing a powerful pivot in their life. And they still have gas in the tank. They still want to do it just like any solopreneur. And many of them are taking an entrepreneurial journey. So I went ahead and decided to not only connect with Natalie, but also give her C-Suite, it's a mouthful, to give her C-Suite a test drive. So right now I'm actually attending some of her masterminds, and so far it's been quite a pleasure. The caliber of the women that she has in this program is very, very high. These are very talented, confident, and eager to help network and help provide resources to fellow members. So I'm really looking forward to getting to know these ladies that much more and finding ways I can be of service to them as well. So it's kind of cool. In the interview, we talk about a lot of things, mostly in the context of her starting. And one of the things that she told me after we were finished recording and I hit the stop button, which sometimes I wish I should just let it run out until I'm actually off the call with my guest, because sometimes the best nuggets are after the record button stops. But she was telling me, I wish I had said something about self-funding in the beginning, because she talked about how she kind of went all in when she first decided this is what she wanted to do. She put tons of money, effort, time into it. She wanted to go big. She was just, after this kind of big vision that she had, and she actually advises against that. And I agree. I think that when we start, because your business is going to evolve, I promise you that. Even though I'm still doing a lot of the same things, like the same tactical services that I did when I first started, such as building websites, doing branding, strategy, and so on, the way I work with my clients is very different. I have new frameworks, new models, much smarter efficiencies in how I work with my clients so they get bigger bang for their buck. And I self-funded as well, but I didn't spend all the money I had. And for me, it was like, I got to work hard to start earning income so I can have a healthy, balanced business where I'm bringing in money and I'm also spending time to grow the business as well. It was a really good conversation. We also talked a lot about memberships. And I have a client right now, actually it was Harry Travis, who I had on the show quite a few episodes ago in the beginning of this season. And he talked about starting the Roundtable, which is a membership platform. And so I wanted to know what she was experiencing as far as her struggles with the membership platform. Because remember, this show is not just like Terry giving advice and talking to guests about their experience. No, it's meant to be tactical and practical. So I want you to be able to make better decisions about your platforms, your services, your software, the choices you make as a solopreneur, so you can save the headache of trying to figure it out on your own. It's a really good conversation. It kind of goes all over the place. So strap in, because here we go with another conversation with Terry and Natalie. I hope you enjoy. Welcome to My Solopreneur Life. I'm Terry Pappy, your gracious host, and I am so glad you're here. I have a wonderful episode for you. Sit back, relax, and let's have some real talk about what it is to be a solopreneur. Hello, Natalie, and hey, here we are in My Solopreneur Life, and we are going to talk about you today in the context of starting. So let's start the episode by you saying hello to my listener and telling just a little bit about what you're doing today.
Well, Terry, it's wonderful to be here with you today, and I'm thrilled for this opportunity. And I hope that my first thing is I hope our listeners that are listening get something out of this. That's the first thing. So I am here today because I am focused on women in the second half of our careers and super hyper narrowly focused, generally 20 plus, maybe 30 years after starting out. And I'm the founder of her C-suite, and everything we do is focused on creating portfolio careers that are meaningful. And I'm thrilled to have this opportunity to have a conversation about being a solopreneur. What is it like? All the things.
Yes.
And all the maybe key learnings, because there are learnings on this journey.
Absolutely. And I want to get into her C-suite. And I think it's remarkable because like Andy Lyons also does like that latter half of life as far as like reinvention. And we still got a lot to give in our late 50s, 60s, and 70s, and even beyond that. One of my clients is actually over 70. Actually, I have more than one client over 70, and I think that is terrific. I really do. And even though I think in our minds we want to like have the retirement plan, years ago, it might have even been on my last podcast, I remember saying, I don't want to be a 70-year-old web designer. At this rate, it might just happen because I still love building, as silly as that is.
I feel you on that.
Yeah, and I love that you're addressing that particular segment of the population for women because, I mean, things are so interesting right now in the society, culture, economy, everything that's going on with technology going nuts. I mean, you and I have lots of conversations about AI and how excited we are for it, and how that's changing the landscape of everything we're doing. And it's really amazing to see. I want my listener to really get a good idea as far as how you started. And let's talk specifically about when you went into business for yourself as a solopreneur, as a one-person business, because I know you're not by yourself in your business anymore, correct? You have people on your team?
I have team members, but they're not full-time anymore. I'm the full-time solo.
Okay.
And then I have people that are helping me in different areas of the business to make it all run smoothly.
Gotcha. And that's probably, and we can talk about that too, because that's probably just where you found the best efficiencies as far as the overhead for your business, as well as I need these experts to help me offload some of this more administrative or specific task work that I need to have done. So if I remember, we'll go back and talk about that too. But I want to start by you telling the story of what made you start your own business, like what was going on in your life, and when that was, and then how her C-suite evolved from that and with that.
You know, I tell the story because I think people can visualize March 2020, only I was in trade shows. And I had over 1,000 that were going on at the time. And one by one, they all just canceled. And I watched I had this giant board, and I watched the board, and we were like crossing them all off. And I kind of looked at my team and I was like, okay, we have, a crew out on the show floor, and we're just telling them, just leave it. You'll be back in a week. Oh my gosh, that did not happen. Trucks in transit to all these things, and everything came to a screeching halt. And so I've been a curious learner my whole life, but especially in the second half of my adult life. We've talked about some of the courses that you and I have taken. And I just started taking courses because I thought, you know what, while this is all going on, I want to learn something. At the time, I felt like I was the conductor on the Titanic. My company was PPP. We had restrictions on having to keep all the employees, but only a fraction of us were working full time on partial unemployment, which was a big wake-up call. And I believe in when doors close, windows open, and it's up to us to fly through. And I chose that moment at the end of the year after studying and learning about membership communities, actually. I built my own website. I did not build the final one, but thought, I'm going to learn I took Pat Flynn's free course. Here's how you build a website. I'm like, how hard can it be? And right before this call, I was in my website doing some stuff. Although I do have someone that fixes it after I noodle with it a little bit. But so at the end of that year, at the end of 2020, I looked around and I thought, oh my gosh, I don't know how long this is going on, but women were in extreme stress. And so I started meeting once. It's crazy to think we met weekly, 11 of us in two cohorts. We call them masterminds. And we started meeting and we all had this idea that we were going to get to the C-suite because all of us still thought the world was going to come back. And so we're like, okay, we're just going to meet because this is crazy town. So let's just meet every week. And I had these two groups, Power and Impact was the name that I named them. And I had my company, Her Power Too, but I didn't have her C-suite yet. And we just sort of talked. And then when January came, the world changed so much, and it was the Great Resignation because of the stress that women were going under. And it was a big opportunity for her C-suite to kind of move in and look beyond the vice president to C-suite, which is where we started. And over time, over the last 4 years, we've really accommodated until we landed in this portfolio position right now, portfolio career company. But we've made a lot of pivots along the way. I've made a lot of pivots personally because I did have a team at the beginning. I had crazy town team of full-time employees thinking that I was going to pitch and I'm going to win these pitch competitions because I'm in sales and I'm going to do all this stuff. And that didn't really work out as I had thought. So yes, I did a lot of key learnings that first year.
So and this is brilliant because one of my clients that I'm still working with right now did something kind of similar. He just wanted to stay connected with other people in the industry and felt, listen, how are we going to stay abreast of what's going on in the industry? And so he started bringing in companies to talk about things. And he was just a natural curator and a natural networker. And when I met him, he's like, I've got this group up to 140 people and we meet every 3 weeks and have these presentations and And he says, I want to take it to the next level. And that's when we started working together, which was really fascinating. We developed a paid membership model, which I think we're so lucky right now, Natalie, to have so much technology at our disposal. When it comes to being a one-person business, there are so many different models that we could provide that are obviously, a lot of them are service-oriented, where we work with people by sharing our knowledge. Many are tactical, like the things that I do as well. And it's just remarkable that we can have so many different ways to earn income. And I think it's brilliant. So I want to go back to what you were saying about women were stressed at this period of time. What were they stressed about? What was the general thought stream? Or because if you're looking at, unless you were dealing with women at all age ranges, because now you're working with women that are mainly in the second chapter of their careers, where they're still viable, have a lot more experience, have had or possibly want to have a higher executive role or be on a board, et cetera. And so in those early days around the COVID time, when you said that they were stressed, what were some of the things that were going on that were stressors? Because a lot of these masterminds can turn into these kind of rant sessions where people just complain about their woes and it doesn't really go anywhere. And I don't really see that you were leading that. So tell me a little bit more about what everybody was dealing with.
So after the launch, I transitioned a couple things. We did a couple things. One, we were not restricted to the vice president to C-suite. So I had original founders who really felt strongly that they wanted to be surrounded by women at their same level because they were so giving and mentoring others. So the vice president to C-suite ended up being one of the things, but we also, I just want to answer that question first and then I'll answer your other question. But we also we had a program called Accelerate, which was women mid-career, because managers to directors hit a ceiling, they can't get to that VP level. And so I wanted to help them. And I had people coming to me. And that's really the way I've evolved her C-suite is when people come to me, they present a problem. I'm like, we should solve for that. That's how I did my trade show career. So I really was focused on, okay, there's these two tiers. And then companies we're trying to figure out, are we mandating people to come back? I mean, this is putting us back in time. There was leaders in her C-suite that were having to impose that, having to fire people or let people go because they wouldn't come back. And so women were juggling caregiving of their family, their parents were in the sandwich generation, right? It's like up and down and sideways. And that stress, plus being on camera all day, if you were remote, it was overwhelming. And so a lot of them just said, you know what? I'm out. And so we came up with programs to help them retain their top female talent. That was kind of our first foray into working B2B while still having B2C with members. So I was like, oh, I'm in two places at once. We had mentoring programs for women with speakers. And it's funny, you said earlier about the events with that client. And I had done, I don't know, 20,000, 30,000 events in my career, maybe more. And I said, I'm not going to do events anymore. I'm just done. But it turns out I've only done events since I left the trade show industry. I just do speaking events. I mean, everything's an event. Our masterminds that we're in together, it's an event, right? I get speakers coming in or whatever. It's still kind of an event, but I wasn't thinking of it that way. It took me 3 years to figure it out. And I'm like, you know what? I'm actually doing events. But getting back to your question, I think it's really, at that time, women were just overwhelmed with the pressure. And so it was just a time of volatility, the VUCA, everyone was talking about, and we're still in it today.
Of course. And I didn't want to make any assumptions about that because many of us would like to forget those couple of years when we were dealing with.
Yeah, I'm trying to bring us back. Oh,
yeah. But what's interesting about this, Natalie, and this is why I'm kind of poking at this particular aspect of what you were saying, is when we're starting a business, and I want my listener to really hear this. When we're starting a business, a lot of times we don't really know what we're doing. Not to say that that was your situation, but based on what I'm learning about you and what I'm hearing you talk about, it's like you kind of were doing a lot of different things. You were looking at the corporate support, like you said, B2B. You also had the membership, so you were doing coaching, almost like career counseling. And in many ways, it kind of like had the flavor of recruitment. So there was a lot of different hats that it seems you were trying on to satisfy a lot of these problems that were coming up in these conversations that you would have with these other professional women. And so what I think is remarkable is whenever we start a business, we don't really have to come right out the gate and have it all figured out. I was on a presentation yesterday and I got to the Q&A section of the call, which I always like rush through my content so I can have Q&A because it's my favorite part of any presentation. And one of the participants asked me, how do I pick the right model for my business? And I'm like, well, geez, that's a huge question, right? I mean, there's a lot of facets that need to be uncovered. That's why I have the Passion course for folks who are really just trying to figure it out when they start. And I bet, and this is going to lead into my next question for you, that I bet that all these different aspects, things you were trying out, obviously some were influenced by COVID and the aftermath, but eventually it kind of calmed down a little bit and you kind of found the sweet spot for her C-suite and it became what it is or evolving to today. So tell me about some of the things that you noticed when you were working with these professional women in what they were asking for, what they were struggling with, and some of the things that you were like, you know what, I can fix that, or I can provide a space for that to work. So talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, I think for the leader, starting with the leader, because that's where we started, which her C-suite was designed because we believe that we can create our own board of advisors, which was the women that were in the cohorts, and our own seat at the table, to quote Shirley Chisholm. So bring your own seat if we're not going to get invited. I want to just also say at that time, there was only 3% of women in CEO positions in the Fortune 500. So there was this big disconnect. And so there were women executives, and that was kind of who I was working with. And so they were trying to decide and struggle with that leadership visibility. How do I gain traction? And it wasn't that they needed sponsorship, because they were really adept at that. And in fact, they were executive sponsors, but it was still like shifting and getting that visibility to take that next step. Some of them did, some of them retired, some of them, which is why we have Next, some of them, decided that's it, I'm going to become an entrepreneur. Then they go back and they came back into corporate. So people were coming and going in that flow. And it was all about really tuning in, like you said, your passion, but also your values and understanding your values. So one of the things that we really focused on is, what is most important to you? What is it that you really value? And I think now more than ever, women now today are feeling the power of the purse that's happening in 2030 to all the other things. To answer your question about what were we solving, it was really around getting aligned with what you value and with the company. And that's where there was this big disconnect with the exit. And then how do you bring that back in for yourself, for yourself as a leader? How do you tap into that?
I like that. That's really interesting. And even though you focus on the niche that is women, because I have all kinds of listeners, and I don't want my male listeners to feel left out. But there's a lot of elements here that I still want to get to, that I think is going to be really valuable from the standpoint of career, being part of a membership, being a solopreneur, starting something. Let's talk about when you were starting to pick up some of the specific needs, because these cohorts eventually evolved, right, into more of what you're doing today. Because when you and I met not very long ago, you had a very specific thing that you were doing. You have a rather large group of professional women as members, and I want to talk about membership too. And so tell me a little bit about how that kind of shaped as you were maturing these cohorts and then getting into more of a traditional membership model and an offering with the price point and everything that you're doing today.
Well, I think it was really watching the trends in the marketplace and understanding if it was corporate was at the time, which was great. Corporations were sponsoring their women at the time. And I will say that I did do a mentoring program with Coupa Software that had men as mentors, but there were women in the program. So it's not that I don't work with men. I've done really big programs, speaker programs for a week for one of the top Fortune 20 companies. And so when I did that, it was their top SLT. So men and women, 140 people, top 7 to 25 of the very, very top. But in her C-suite, it's only women.
Gotcha.
So in fact, one of the interesting things that happened, you were talking about membership. I created a custom membership platform built from scratch and an app. And I had to code to put the male mentors into my platform because women didn't want their content necessarily visible. So it was this whole like, oh, we have to
Goodness.
have them separated over here and all this special coding and things like that. So there's always a way. And that's my philosophy with trade shows. So, I learned is there's always a way. You got to be adapting to that. I don't know if I answered your question. On a tangent, maybe.
Well, let's get into the weeds about the membership, because that's an interesting point you brought up about doing a custom membership site, because now it's like going to the grocery store. There's like 50 different types of bread you can pick from. Same thing with membership sites and platforms that are kind of turnkey. They have email marketing, they've got memberships, they've got all kind of stuff in them. And it's like, oh my goodness gracious. When you were looking for that platform, because when you're running a business based on delivering a certain type of service, that you need that platform to support that's beyond brochureware on a website, essentially. God forbid that there's still websites out there like that and they need to do more. But anyway, I digress. What I want to understand is, what was the process that you went through as you were starting to look at, what do I need? What are my business requirements? What do I need for security? How do I monetize this, et cetera? So walk me through that process where you did that research and you decided to build your own.
Well, as a curious learner, the first thing I did, still while in my job, because I was doing this learning on the side, was I took a course by the membership guys at the time, but they've changed their name. They're out of England. And they walk you through every type of platform at the time that existed, which now it is not at all the same landscape. And so I like weighed them. I started with one because you have to do all kinds of things like processors and how are you running the payment system. There's all these different variables. So I learned everything that I could. And then I ended up going through a series of developers trying to find the solution. And I will say, doing it custom is a huge, I know you talked about this on your show. I don't recommend it. Because you always have to have an IT or someone somewhere that can answer. And I had things breaking all the time. My clients did not know this, but it was so stressful to me on the back end. I would have nights that I wasn't sleeping because things were breaking and all sort of things. So now I highly recommend, if someone's thinking about it, there are great platforms out there that are made for you and you just plug and play and you're relatively quickly up to speed. But doing your own custom one as a website designer, you can appreciate it is a huge lift. And then having an app, oh my goodness, like Apple and Google have very heavy standards. And then if you have to update, there's all this stuff that happens. So I don't recommend that route. Not at all.
So, how long did it take you to get it up and running once you finally set up the current platform that you have?
It took probably a couple months,
Okay.
I would say, before we were really ready. I started early and before I launched, so I, had things in place and learned about it. It took a bit of time because it was hard to find people that knew how to do what I was trying to do. So
Mm.
that was the other thing. So going to places like Upwork or Fiverr or just out web searching was tricky too. So it was a lot of finding tech people. And luckily I had a digital background because that's where I ended in my trade show career,
Mhm.
was helping digital transformation because there were no live trade shows. So we did 3D immersive environments. So that was part of it. I kind of learned all those things leading up to it, but yeah, that is something for a solopreneur I do not recommend.
Well, like you said, the landscape has changed quite a bit. In fact,
So changed.
I
Yes.
I'm a Squarespace Circle member, meaning I've been using Squarespace since 2008. It's a great platform and it's
Wow.
evolved
Yeah.
tremendously. And my one client that has a membership site, and I actually ran a membership site myself, and that's going to be my next question about membership sites. And it's in the Squarespace platform, and he loves it. I have yet to find, and I know there may be a listener out there that'll say, "Oh, I know the perfect one." There's really no perfect platform that can do it all because our businesses are always evolving. They're always changing and growing, and we need to, create a Zap to have this integration. And then over here, we got to incorporate this. And
Yes.
then next thing you know, you got to sign up for another service because it's just not cutting it in the main one. But what's nice about a platform like Squarespace, and there are others, is because it does so many different things, find the right platform that can do the bulk of what you need because it's so much easier to manage as you're working as a solopreneur. And then the things that add value, then you can bolt those on for your own business. And then you can discover, depending on what service you provide, how you can use a specific platform for your clients. And I think that that's really important to know. But it is good that there are so many more choices, and there will continue to be even bigger and better choices, especially in this world of agentic AI. So it's just crazy what's going on with AI. I mean, seriously.
Yes.
So let's talk specifically about memberships because memberships are a great model for scale. So when you're a solopreneur, one of the things that's really important is find out how you can scale your business. What is it that you can do that you can sell over and over and over versus having one off, one off, one off? And my business is a mix of both. Okay. So like I've written and published books as you have. I have an online course. Now those are for scale. I can sell those things to many, many people. But my hands-on coaching, my website development, creative branding, all of that business development strategy work that I do, that is it's almost personal to me because I spend so much time learning about my client and what they do because I want to really just embed myself into their business, their mind, what their vision is. And I can't scale that. Like I'm only one person. So one of the things that I found, and I think I know these membership guys that you were talking about, because I remember when I very first was looking at doing a membership, I was listening to their podcast and they were talking about this, that, and the other. And I got to experience in real time the challenge with memberships. And before I say what my challenge was, what has been your biggest challenge with running a membership community?
Well, now I think it's reduced tremendously. My biggest challenge was my tech stack. And, for those that are listening that are somewhat savvy in the WordPress land, I had a very heavy plugin stack to make my membership platform work. And like I said earlier, there were things that would always be like updated and all of those things. And that was probably my biggest challenge. Um, and I also had this unusual thing where I offer and still do entrepreneurs can have their course inside my platform. So when I did the big transfer into Circle, which is where I am now a year ago, I transitioned with my good friend, Bobby Carlton from Innovation Women. We checked out Circle and we're like, oh, this is actually pretty good. They have tech people on call. We don't have to have tech people. Sign us up. We were like
Ready to go.
I got exposed to it from Entreprenista. So I learned, I test. So I like to learn things in case your listener hasn't figured that out. I'm always like, wait a second.
So Natalie, are
So
you
I
a
like
lifelong learner?
Very cliche, but yes, I am. And I like to try to understand something and how it works to make sure, and then I can delegate, but I like to know myself how it works so that I can understand and help others. So finding the right thing, I've tried, there's Mighty Networks, there's Go High Level, there's Circle, Buddy Boss was the platform I used. There's lots to choose from. You just have to find the one that's going to work for you the best and make sure that you have the support around you. That's what I would say. And there's no one best one. The one thing that I did love about my previous one was that I could do this entrepreneur, bringing people in. We had amazing courses for them inside my platform that I created. So it's all changing to adapt to where you are now.
Yes. And
I think that's the biggest thing.
I didn't realize you were also a SaaS, a software as a service. It's like, okay.
Oh, yeah. I had 10 licenses. I bought 10 licenses, by the way, Terry, because I thought, I'm going to sell this.
Yeah. Well,
and then I thought, no, I don't want to do that.
Well, you bring up something, or at least you make me think of something that's really important for solopreneurs to remember. And I've actually had this conversation with my clients, not that I'm advising you in this manner, but pick a lane and stay in it. And sometimes,
Yes.
and I've done this because I am very creative and I'm constantly wanting a new project, something new to add to my business, a new service, a new thing. Like I'm even doing that right now, thinking about modifying a coaching/training program that is sort of like a subscription plan and that really fits how people want to work. And I think it's so important when you get distracted as a solopreneur with some of these tangents, whether it's driven by personal interest or something that you're seeing in the industry, trend-wise or what have you, it's really important to make sure you remember who you are, what your brand is about, and what value you bring to the table through the problems that you solve. And sticking with that, because the more you start switching and changing and moving around, the harder it's going to be for people to refer you, to be known for something. And those are really important things that I think every solopreneur needs to consider when they get distracted by, oh, this new thing came out, or, oh, look at this guy over here. He's doing this thing. I'm going to start doing that. And that's what I love, going back to your early conversation about how you were explaining how you were providing service and value and so on. You really dialed into what you saw a need. You wanted to solve those problems that these professional women were having that were partly induced by the COVID experience, as well as the change in corporate America and all the things that were going on, and which is a volatile time to be making decisions about what lane you want to be in business, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So
Yeah. You got to adapt.
so I definitely wanted to, kind of point that out for my listener. But let's get back to the membership. So aside from the tech stack, the technology, just running the machine, what
Mm.
was like the number one thing? What is the number one thing that you're challenged with running a membership? The reason why I'm asking this is I want my listener to be fully acquainted with, it sounds great, but you have to work really, really hard at keeping members. So talk to me about the number one thing that outside of tech stack that you're really struggling with.
I think I'm a high touch, very personal, as you might have guessed, person. And for me, scaling that is always a challenge. I host masterminds and I host programs where people can see me monthly and all of that. But being able to really make sure that they feel that high touch experience from me is really sometimes not always scalable, right? It's just like, you have your one-to-one coaching, but then going to broad. So I think that's one of the things that if people are looking at a membership, you can have membership concierge. You can have, in fact, there's AI agents now that can come in. But I haven't tried that yet because I'm not sure it's going to have enough of my flair in it. But I think that's probably the hardest thing is I want people to feel the connection and know that they matter and all of the important things that are really at the heart of what I believe. So that personal connection and scaling that I think is always the bigger you get, the harder it is.
Well, I will tell you this because for my listener, I'm actually taking a test drive of Natalie's, her C-suite membership. And I will tell you this, that for me as a member, the experience of you and your facilitation and your high touch communication, I'm a big communicator. I love that about what you do and as far as the service you provide. And so one of the things that I found challenging with membership plans is keeping members engaged. And this is exactly what's happening with my one client and their membership platform. He's bringing immense value to these people, but yet it's not a priority for them. It's not something that they see as pivotal in their day to day. And it's not addressing the number one thing that they want, which is to get engagements for business when he's not a recruiter. He's not there to find their next job or get them a consulting gig. Yet he's creating a platform and resources and experience and network that these people, if they leveraged it, if they put a little bit of energy in, it would be incredible. And there are quite a few. I don't want to make it sound like they're all like lazy bums, because believe me, there are quite a few that are very engaged, very involved, show up to every event, and they're getting results, meaning they're like, we've had several that rolled off because they got full-time jobs. So they have a different focus now. So I think that, and I remember with the membership guys, they're saying you constantly have to be providing ongoing value. And for you, your highest value is you. And you're right, it's not scalable, right? So I think that if you stepped away or somehow deployed, this is just my Terry Pappy's opinion, if you stepped away and started deploying some agentic, unless it was just administrative, but for the
Yeah, it's
yeah, but
administrative.
for the
Yeah.
real, like upfront, close and
Mm.
personal, I want to see you. I want to hear you. I want to watch you do your thing and herding cats while we're all on a mastermind call or whatever. And I think that that's really valuable to me. Okay. So for my listener, when you're looking at a membership, just know it's going to be a big lift from the standpoint of keeping your members engaged. Because remember, if you're doing a subscription model, every month they're going to be looking at that credit card, just like we all look at the Netflix, like, oh, I haven't watched Netflix. I've been watching Apple TV, right? And so why do I pay for Netflix if I'm not watching anything on it? So then they take it off. They cancel their subscription. That's the big risk in real memberships when you're running them as a business. I think having it maybe as a part of a service that's part of your overall business is probably a more sensible option, because the amount of work that you have to put in to keeping people entertained, just like your Netflix, and you're producing really fresh shows all the time and good programming that reaches everybody and connects with everybody, that it can be popular and shared and everything. That's what's really important with the membership. So that's kind of why I wanted to kind of center on that. And so far, my experience is you're providing some really nice value and some very frequent events, which I really like. And I can't make tomorrow's, which really stinks. But anyway.
All right. Well, I want to just touch on one thing because this is my learning.
Yes.
I used to be really stressed about why isn't more people commenting? Why aren't they posting? Why aren't all the people in this mastermind coming? And I've shifted my mindset from membership to programs. I view everything as a program. The mastermind is a program. Yes, it's a membership because it's monthly, but I view it as meeting the customer where they are. If they don't want to come in, everything's on Zoom. I could do it in Circle. I could do everything in Circle in the one program I do, but I want to meet the customer where they are. And if they want to come in once a week, great. Come in once a week. I stopped sweating that out. That was like one thing that used to keep me. Why is nobody? I've posted this, and I used to post like every day, all the time. And I realized, you know what? Meet them where they are. So I put all my energy into those 5 programs, actually 6 that I deliver, and make sure those are really good. And if people can't come, that's okay. I don't want anyone ever feeling bad. So you're not, going to be able to join us tomorrow. That's okay. You'll come to the next one. It's great. We have 2. Actually, you have 5. So 6 if we count Women on the Move.
Yeah, I'm there.
So there's lots of ways you can see me every month. But I just changed my mindset around that this year, really this season, and saying, let's change the way we're thinking about this. It still is subscription, of course, because people get that monthly. I also removed the annual which is pretty disruptive. I said, you know what? It's really stressful for people when they see this bigger thing. Let's just keep it rolling. And they feel better about it. They're like, oh yeah, it's fine. Another one. And so those are some shifts that I've made this year in mindset, and then also with how I view the billing process. And everybody's different, but I just really want to meet the customer. And that's what I would suggest for your listeners is meet them where they are. Don't stress. The platform is a tool. It's not the thing. That's where I had to change my mindset, because I used to think I'm selling the platform membership. No, I'm selling an experience for the person that's coming in for where they are in the season of their life. Yeah. And so that's just a shift, for memberships.
That's a great reframe for memberships, because it is about the experience and the value you're providing through shared time together. And like the one I was on most recently, it was a small group, but it was really powerful and potent because there was so much sharing. Like, oh, I can introduce you to this person, and oh, you should look at this resource. It was like being in a supercharged networking resource kind of thing. And it was a wonderful conversation, and it had just the remember, it was like a natural thread of healthcare.
Yes.
Everything was kind of in that healthcare vein. And I was like, yeah, I had this client that was in healthcare. And so I was surprised that, being new to the group, that I even had a lot to contribute, which I was really happy I could do. So, all right. So I want to kind of close with some advice that you could provide my listener around the concept of starting. And obviously, we've talked about a bunch of different things, everything from your tech stack platform to the business model that you had, how you got started, the experience you had with the industry changing through COVID. It affected me too, because I worked with a lot of people in the National Speakers Association. And it's just one of those things where you got to kind of ride those waves, baby. But they always end up, like you say, about the window, when one door closes, a window opens. It's so true, because sometimes the pivots are what help us find a better way to serve, as you say, meet the customer where they are. So if we have someone who's let's say it's somebody in their 50s and they just got laid off their corporate job. They're not quite ready to hang up the hat. They want to start being a consultant or some type of counselor, coach, executive trainer, whatever they did in corporate, they still love it. They don't want to find another job. They're done with corporate life, and they want to just kind of do their own thing. Like they always had a dream of having their own business. As they're considering laying this out and doing this, what are a couple of tips that you could give them from a starting perspective? And what would you recommend?
I think you have to look at your life at that point as slices. I once had a member who came in and talked to us about this, that your life is the mosaic at this point. And you have to decide how much time, because it's not infinite, it's finite. How much time are you going to devote to the slices? So in her C-suite, we have next, which is figuring it out, exactly what you're talking about. And then you can go to the right and go to an entrepreneur, you can go to the left and be a board member, or you can do all three. But you have to decide your slices. For some people, they want to spend more time intentionally with their family. And so they are doing less time on the grind that they're used to. The door has opened. And so if they feel defeated because maybe there was an exit that wasn't planned, look at it as the best opportunity for you to reconvene, reimagine what your life can look like in slices and percentage. And I know you talk about finding your passion, but that's really understanding who you are as a person. What do you value? Think about that first and then align to it. And it is a cliff. When you leave your busy job, you're like nonstop meetings. You can't even take a bio break. And then all of a sudden, there's nobody to talk to. It's just crickets around here. I had a day like that. I was like, hey, you know what? I haven't actually talked to a human yet today. That's interesting, isn't it? So just be prepared for those kinds of things, but still explore and don't limit yourself and tell yourself, I can't because. Think I can because the window's just opened, and be open to the messages that are coming to you and explore and be curious.
I love that. That's a great way to finish. I'm like listening to you going, reflecting for myself, which is pretty cool, right? It's like I got so wrapped up in what Natalie was saying, I forgot what I really wanted to go to next. No, I love that.
It's good.
That
It's a
was
good sign.
wonderful. So, well, let's call it a day for now. Thank you for hanging out with me and having this wild and crazy ride, a conversation about you and starting.
Thank you so much, Terry. I've really enjoyed it.
Well, I know you're disappointed, but that's it for this episode. Listen, the great news is there's another one coming, so stay tuned. Anyway, I just want to make sure that you do the prompt. If this episode had a prompt, and you get that homework done because you're going to be a better solopreneur. How's that for a maternal finger shaking at you? Hey, listen, thanks so much for being here, for giving me time of your day, and, for taking it on. So if you want to learn more and stay connected with me, just head on over to mysolopreneurlife.com. Thanks a bunch. See you soon. That was pretty good. I think I'll keep that one.